So the agenda is that we are going to discuss about this AIGP course in depth, the various nuances of this course, and we are going to discuss about who should take this course and why should you take AIGP and what you will do after doing AIGP. There is opportunities and why InfoSec trade. So we're not going to say same order, but we will be covering all these elements in depth. You would have seen n number of posters like this doing rounds. Okay, and so I think I kept CAPM in the bottom. That's like okay. So if you look at this screenshot, why I brought this screenshot today is to discuss on the AIGP opportunities, especially I this is from McKinsey and Company, and I was a bit curious on seeing a couple of stats. Okay, one is this number. So whenever we were all part of the data privacy discussions, one thing which is very common between in data privacy and security roles is that it's always looked upon as a cost center, correct? So as a security managers who are working for various organizations, you always have this hurdle, right, in terms of winning those conversations, winning those budgets, winning the required resources for the organization in terms of information security or data privacy, right? It's usually seen as a cost center. But with the AI, the narrative is a bit different, right? Here, who is more eager to implement the AI is the business, because business sees tremendous potential to actually make more money in terms of profit and revenue, correct? So that's a fundamental shift between the data privacy, information security versus AI. So that is one important point that you want to keep in mind whenever many people are going to ask me this question. I've asked this question in the past as well, Jay, what's going to be the opportunities for AI? So when you ask me for data privacy, I said it's going to be around the data privacy law in the India and the various data privacy laws around the world, because very honestly speaking that the laws are the factor which driven this data privacy discussions around us, correct? And the penalties especially. So that has been the driving factor. So once the laws take the center stage, the rules gets enforced. There are various laws that are getting enforced around the world, and this is the very important factor that is driving the required opportunities as well as in terms of the necessity for the privacy program. Now, if you see AI, there is a two-way push. One, it's not the law which is only enforcing the organization to take the compliance seriously, but the business is also more than interested to actually look into the governance part. The reason is they are looking at this as a wonderful opportunity to scale their business products and services, and they are looking at once in 10-15 years opportunity, right? So AI is not a new topic. It's been there for probably 15-20 years or more than that. And it's only getting evolved over a period of time. And what has now happened with the computing resources which are available right now, it's making possible for the rapid adoption and evolution of the AI services, correct? So, and what we see here is 92% of the organizations are either planning or already have started adopting AI, right? Which means this is like what happened in internet. With the internet boom, everyone had a once in 20 years or 15 years opportunity to expand in terms of some new avenues, completely altogether new avenues. And I just foresee that this is very similar to that, right? And AI is changing our business models. AI is changing the way our interaction with the digital systems. It's changing every walk of our life slowly. Either we are aware of it or maybe not aware of it. Very soon you might see even trainings conducted by AI, and AI might be reaching that level of maturity that it can become very good trainers as well. Okay, so on the lighter side, but yes, this is the era where you can think about being an early mover in AI, right? So AI has a lot of opportunity, but we are specifically picking one area, which is the AI governance. And the reason for it, the reason is why you see that 92% of adoption rate is probably not very well structured, right? The organizations are more keen in adoption rather not having to maintain their checks and balances, not looking at the risk, not looking at the impact on the people who are interacting with these systems, correct? So that is where the laws are now catching up. So there is a EU AI Act, and very soon we will see so many other laws which are going to come up. Many federal laws are in the making. India might have its own version, which is also being planned as we speak. So there are a lot of interesting intersection that's going to happen in the next 2 years. But we don't need to wait for those laws in India, because the reason the business are the ones which are driving this change, and business is more than happy to spend something on the governance perspective because they are selling their products and services all around the world. If not in India, they are going to be answerable in Europe. If not in India, they're going to be answerable in US. So these two markets already have the data AI related requirements, right? So this is something which is inevitable for the organization to have the required AI governance professional. Okay, so that is something which I wanted to set the tone, right? There is no need to justify again that why we need AI, or there is no justification of how much of AI governance professional required in the next 4 5 years, right? So that's one important agenda. I want to make it very clear as my starting note. And apart from this, you see the AI adoption rate. The highest is in India and China as expected, and it's almost catching up with all the developing markets or developed markets, right? So it's absolutely gonna have a fantastic expansion, evolutionary change that is happening around us in the next 2 3 years. The pace as which it's gonna move, it's probably no one is gonna predict it. That is another interesting thing. No one knows after 6 months what's gonna happen, right? So that's something which I want to clarify in terms of why this is a very important space. Now, I wanted to also discuss of why AI governance is very important, right? And it is basically a AI scanning a person. Many of you might think that this is used in a situation where probably in an airport, probably in an organization, probably the law enforcement agency is using it, right? So biometric identification, authorization, in terms of using this by the law enforcement agencies for securing our country, places wherever we are, it has huge potential to reduce the crime. Okay, but I'm going to tell you a interesting case, right? So the London police had adopted this, okay, and it had a tremendous error rate of 82%. And because of that, okay, so you won't believe, right? It led to a situation where a 16-year-old or 14-year-old boy being arrested, okay, and that's because of the errors that happened with the matching algorithm, right? So that is only a tip of the iceberg, right? N number of use cases are there. Probably you might have heard n number of cases where the AI has gone wrong. It all started with Amazon's AI hiring tool, which is probably you might have heard everywhere, right? But apart from this, there are some sensitive use cases where Amazon AI hiring tool had a bias where it favored male candidate because it was trained on the male candidate's resume predominantly. So it almost felt like women are not relevant to these positions, right? And this is the problem with AI. AI is as good as it being coded and trained, right? And it does not have any inherent flaws, but the flaw is always with us, isn't it? So apart from this, another interesting case again in US, it's even more sensitive. It is a compass algorithm which was used in criminal justice in US in 2016, and it is regarding predicting the recidivism, which is basically like a parole system in India. So it was trying to decide who will commit a crime. Okay, so they were trying to predict based on the profile, and it unfortunately incorrectly labeled all the people with color as high risk often than the people with white skin as who were the defendants. Okay, that is also well documented bias. And apart from this, there are n number of cases where the facial recognition has gone wrong. Okay, for example, Google Photos in 2015 had a similar issue where it classified all the black people as gorillas. This happened. Okay, and also the use case which I told you with the London law enforcement, but more serious incidents like Tesla. Okay, the autopilot crashes, which lead to fatal incidents that happened. Right, this is also a classic example of AI system, isn't it? And Uber self-driving car also had very similar. It killed a pedestrian in 2018, right? So these are all the negative use cases. Why I'm trying to build this negative use case is that the companies whichever is deploying these use cases need governance mechanism in place. Okay, it's very fascinating. It's very having a huge returns possible in terms of reducing the manpower, reducing the production cost, reducing the operational cost, but it also comes at a cost of human life or hindrance to human life. Correct. So n number of other use cases which for example, there was a stock market use case as well where there was a situation where AI driven high frequency trading algorithm caused a sudden market crash way back in 2010. Okay, 1,000 points got crashed in minutes. This is also a well documented case study, right? Another interesting case study in 2023, lawyers were one of the people who had a rapid adoption to the AI, right? So what they did is basically they started asking AI to help them with the citations of cases that has happened in the past, and AI didn't want to sort of disappoint the people who were asked them, so it started hallucinating and started creating synthetic data, which is probably its own imagination, and created a case that will fit the requirements of what the person asked, right? So these are some of the very interesting things happen. And some more health sector, for example health sector, IBM Watson, many of you might have heard about it. So it was used in oncology related treatments as well as in terms of surgeries as well. So again, the IBM Watson also had this issue in terms of having incorrect and unsafe treatment suggestions. Okay, so doesn't actually make all the systems were unusable. At some point in time, they always had some of the other issues. Okay, another serious probably use case I can tell you is a UN report in 2021 suggested that AI powered drone in Libya have autonomously targeted and attacked people without human orders, right? So these things are even more dangerous. If it goes in wrong hands, probably the next 5-10 years might be it's going to be really scary for all the people, isn't it? So that's the reason we need a lot of focus on AI governance. Okay, probably I think I gave you a lot of use cases, and this is the one use case I said regarding the London use case where 82% was inaccurate data, right? It's stunning how this was deployed, and without proper testing it lead to arrest of people, right? So this is the reason why organizations were made liable for implementing this without testing, right? For example, you would have seen Google, Gemini had a recent backlash, isn't it? And that's where Google was made to take accountability. It went to a limit of asking the Google CEO to resign, right? So accountability is becoming a very important requirement, because they were playing a hide and seek game in terms of putting the blame on the company which trained the data or someone who developed it, and we are just using the deployment part of it. We are just end users, so we shouldn't be blamed for it. But the laws and the standards which are coming up, they made it very very clear. It's the responsibility of the organization using these AI systems. They are accountable for the failures, right? So before they deploy for the use of general public or their customers, they are responsible for testing it. They are responsible for validating the bias. They are responsible to correct the errors before going to production. So this is very, very important for all of us to understand. And this is the reason I would say there is going to be a lot of opportunity for us, right? So the opportunity will make us inevitable in organizations. And that is why the next 5 years, if anyone asked me in India, I would say definitely you need to look into privacy and AI, right? These two are the domains which is going to have a lot of work to do. Leave the job opportunity. There is a lot of work to do in next 5 years. In privacy, we are probably catching up Europe. 10 years, we are probably they are ahead of us by 10-20 years at least, right? So we are catching up with them in the data privacy, but AI is a different ball game, right? Probably we are going neck to neck in AI in terms of the rapid adoption. So this is the situation where we might have great opportunity in AI development as well as in terms of governance in India. All right. So that's a sort of introduction. I just wanted to give why AI governance is the need of the hour. And let's go to discuss few terminologies, right? So anyone who are going to join my session, right, they are going to listen the same stuff. And I usually try to make it a real world example, right? And I always try to break it down into simple terms. If you look at this slide, you probably have a feeling that, Jay, this is too technical, correct? And actually, you are going to be trained by a person who has not a data scientist, who has actually not sort of worked on AI core implementation. I'm a risk governance professional who has a very good understanding, solid understanding on data privacy, risk management. So for me, this is a natural extension to AI. Okay, this is the same way I look it for all of you. So don't think this topics whatever there before you is too technical for you. The reason is they made it diluted the syllabus from previous version to this version to exactly drive this agenda that AIGP is not very technical, but rather focus on the governance part of it, right? So you need to know what is required for governance, right? That doesn't mean you are not going to know all these terms. By the end of the course, you will be a very what a seasoned professional who can explain these terms very clear to anyone, right? So that is the outcome of this course. We are not supposed to know how to code for AI. That is not our responsibility. Am I right? So we are not the people who are gonna be working towards building the model from scratch, right? We are not going to have the responsibility, but rather we are the people who will look at what are the risk scenario while development and deployment, and how do we take care of it with the various standards, frameworks and principles. That's going to be the intent and focus. Okay. So I want everyone to have a clarity about it. Don't get scared on looking onto this AI terms. For the people who have worked on this, they will say this is nothing, Jay. In AI we have so many other terms, right? That is the actual truth. There are so many other terms also which is there, but probably you don't need all these terms. And what you see on the screen is also I just picked it randomly to show you some of the terms, but these are not actually all the terms even required from the syllabus perspective. Okay. So if I have to explain few of these terms, okay, let's take a use case. First of all, you would have heard many of these terms: AI, artificial intelligence, and there is something called as machine learning, right? And there is something called as deep learning, generative AI. There is a lot of terms which is buzzing around us, and there is a LLM, and then there is something called chat GPTs, and these are Copilot, and all these things are sort of is like a buzzword around us everywhere, isn't it? So, but if you have to break down all these things and give a very simple relationship to explain this, right? I'm just probably coming up with my own example just on the go. So let me think as a My daughter is in probably kindergarten. Maybe I'll take one level above. Maybe a kid who is going to the school, maybe second standard or third standard. Okay, so you can treat the AI outcome as a 2 3 year old kid. Why I bring this reason is that the 2 3 year kid may not have its own influence. Okay, it may not be having its own reason of decision making. Rarely, yes, there are certain prodigies, but apart from this, most of the childrens are influenced by the environment. Environment include their parents, the teachers, their friends, and everyone. Am I right? So in that case, let's take AI, something like that. So this AI needs to be taught the good things, the bad things, and the way you need to use it. So you can imagine the AI has to be taught some good lessons. So it needs a medium of communication, correct? So you can consider the method of teaching the AI is machine learning. Okay, so machine learning is like a teacher who is gonna teach what is required for the kid, right? And what is the outcome is basically you can think about the brain of a child, which is getting program coded with various information. Our brain is having neural networks, right? Basically it has a special adaptive mechanism to grasp, learn on the go from various things that happens around us, correct? So the teacher is the machine learning, is a way you teach things, and there is something which is getting generated as an output, that is something you can call it as a model. Your model is there in the child, and that is something which is generating the results. It is giving the outcome, it's an output, right? And the teacher needs a tool to feed that information to the child, right? The books, right? And you can consider that as an algorithm. The algorithm is a step by step instruction breaking down these concepts, how to give this to the child, correct? And that is what you can call as an algorithm. And what is getting evolved is a model. Okay, so model is being trained to know what is what via a teacher, and there is a instrument which is feeding this information, and the outcome is basically the results which the child does. It starts painting, it starts singing, it starts dancing, it starts doing a lot of wonderful things, correct? But don't we think that all of us are heavily influenced by the teachers? The way we think we owe a lot of our success to our school teachers. Am I right? Do you all agree with this? 100% I agree to this point, because I feel my success in terms of my foundations of what I do in day to day life, the foundation always came from the school and the teachers, correct? So this is the way you need to think about the AI is that kid who is dependent on what is being taught and how it's being taught, and it's gonna start doing decisions basis that. Right. Now, this is a very simplistic example. It may not be technically correct, but I'm just trying to make it like a layman's language so that people who are joining without any AI background try to think in this way. This is how these concepts are interlinked together. Right. So, the entire way we teach the child is called as machine learning. Okay. The step by step instruction, how do you feed that information, becomes an algorithm, right? The child's brain is the model which starts thinking. So today you show a scenario, you show a situation, the child is reacting based on what is it looking at, what is it learning. Tomorrow you would have not even taught that particular situation, you might be surprised at your home, right? Like your kid in the house starts speaking. My god, look at the way the kid has started speaking on its own. I didn't even expect, like, it's interpreting those many things, right? So that's the same way the AI is also evolving. So basically, to make it a crux of it, artificial intelligence is a simulation of human intelligence, right? So the baby, when it's born, the intelligence could be there. There is an inherent intelligence, right, that is getting evolved and adopted. You need a mechanism of how this is going to be groomed. That is why we have teachers, the school, the textbooks, and everything, right? And slowly the child starts replicating the intelligence of a human over a period of time, right? So this is a sort of analogy I thought will help all the people to understand it from scratch. I will try to break it always this way so that you understand what is the relation between the terms and what is the intent of these terms, rather than thinking from a technical standpoint of memorizing the definition and other things, right? So this is the overall structure of it. Okay. Now, there is a confusion between artificial intelligence and automated decision making. Okay, there is actually a distinction between that. It's an actually a matter of concern. The reason is there are certain things which can be done without human involvement. Okay, so the basic activities which are repeatable in nature can be automated, right? And that that does not require a human thinking process to be embedded part of that automated task, right? So an automated task, which is probably what you're doing in your Excel, your Word, right? It is many of these tasks are very repetitive in nature, correct? And those tasks can be automated. Automation is not equivalent to artificial intelligence. Okay, so the difference here is, to become under the classification of artificial intelligence process, it you need to remember the kid starts thinking, the kid is adaptive, the kid was taught on one syllabus, it starts thinking and start answering on its own. It has become adaptable, it has started to exhibit human like intelligence, it starts mimicking the intelligence of human, correct? So that is the key difference between a simple automated task versus artificial intelligence. Why we are segregating this? Because there are many very simplistic automated tasks that is not going to attract your AI requirements. Especially, this is a debate which is happening in the Europe. Recently, there was a clarification also given on what is a AI system, right? So again, as we speak, the terminologies are still evolving. People back in US, they are not probably happy with the definition of what EU AI Act said. They were all making a lot of memes and saying that it is like when the European Union says it's a AI, it is called AI. So that's how the definitions are also evolving. There is a bit of ambiguity that is always there with all these type of subjects. There are perspectives, there are different philosophy, school of thought, right? But the idea here is the ability to mimic, the ability to sort of think like a human, the exhibition of human intelligence is the fundamental crux of AI system. Okay, and once you go deeper, there are many things part of this. Okay, now there is a term called neural network. Okay, so neural network, like the way I gave an example, it is exactly envision on this how human brain is structured. It has so many neurons. The neurons are the intelligence component of any human. It has stimulus, it triggers a memory. For example, something happened 10 years back, your brain is able to bring back that memory and tell you this is what it happened, and you remember that precisely, correct? Many of you might remember your school related incident very crisply in your mind, whereas you might have forget what happened yesterday. Am I right? So there is a reason why your brain remembers something like that very precisely, and you're not able to remember what did you did yesterday evening, correct? Or of course, you if you try to recollect what food I had 2 days before, no chance. Especially males, no chance. Okay, because our neurons are coded like that, probably, right? So what I'm trying to say here is neural network is very similar methodology, where they are trying to look at various tasks as a neural network, and trying to bring these activities together. Okay, so there are 3 4 important components of an AI system. Technology is there, the autonomy is there, right? And these two things are very critical factors, and third is the human involvement. Okay, so when we go into neural networks and deep learning, the intent is here that usually humans play a very critical factor in the development, right? What if human involvement is not required? What if human involvement is reduced? Okay, this is where it starts going into the neural network deep learning, where there is something called as unsupervised learning, which is without the human involvement. You can train the AI system, the system will start learning on its own. The system has the capability to select what should I learn, where should I pick something, what should I learn. And this is where it goes into the territory of neural networks, your deep learning, the in terms of your deep learning product, in terms of your generative AI, the deep fakes. This is where it goes a bit difficult in terms of governance. Why it becomes bit difficult in terms of governance? The problem here is you will have very less answers, okay, to show how this input is actually attributing to an output. We have a term called as explainable AI. Why this term was created? Because AI has a nature which is probably a black box. Okay, it's like what goes in and what comes out is very difficult to explain how much that input attributed to the output. For example, let's take my data was not properly collected from me without with my permission. For example, many of the social medias started using our data for AI purposes. Unfortunately, we don't have much of a say. Many of the lawsuits have been triggered, many investigation from the authorities have started. Recently, LinkedIn had a penalty to pay for the same topic which we are discussing, correct? So let's say they use my data and they feed this data to the model. The model learned from this, and like the thousands and lakhs and millions and billions of data that goes in, my data attribute is one of the data which it learned. But it learned from it, and it started having some impact on its outcome. We never be able to quantify what is the outcome. Let's say I want to remove my data. Interesting question is like, they took my data without my permission, it's proven, and I want to remove this data. Will it be feasible to do it? No. At least there is a way to do it, and it's not easy at all, especially when you go into deep learning. It is very very difficult to unlearn something. It is almost equivalent to breaking down the model. Okay, it is that difficult that you will. This is what happened with Amazon also. Amazon tried desperately to fix it, but Amazon was not able to fix it, because at this point of time, once the data goes into the model, there is very less control you will have on the output. Yes, of course, there are fine tuning, there are a lot of methods which is getting evolved over a period of time, which is trying to give the feedback mechanism and try to curate it in a way. We are trying to reduce the bias and other factors, but still the element of uncertainty is very much there. Okay, when we say explainable AI, it's not 100% you can explain what exactly is happening within that. Okay, so it is in a way we are trying to say these are the input parameters, this is the output parameters, this is the model, this is the way the model was built, these are the information you can give, but you will never be able to give the entire information of the decision making. How does it exactly happen? It's very very difficult to do that. Okay, so these are the elements which makes even the AI governance even more interesting and important from a governance perspective. Okay, so I believe I covered at a very high level various terms which are there. Okay, so LLMs are basically a type of your a transformers model, where you have abundant amount of training with the data set, and it's used to generate content. Example, classic examples are chat gpts, right? So the chat gpt is where you use natural language processing, natural language understanding, where the system is able to understand human inputs like voice. It's able to understand our human language in terms of what we type, right? And it's able to synthesize the data and start producing the content again back in the human language in terms of voice or text, like the alexa, like the chat gpts, right? So this is the main elements of our various ai systems. Predominantly there are two types of system. One does a work of, for example, classifying the data, forecasting a data, or another model is where it generates the data. It actually learns by generating the data, and it can also produce an output which is altogether a new version from what it learned. This is where generative ai comes into picture, right? So there is a lot of intersection between these terms, and this is what we will learn during our course. Okay. And the last term, which is the hallucination, which I gave you the example of lawyers rapidly using this ai system, where they gave a lot of interesting references of what court cases that has happened in the past. Unfortunately, when it was verified, it was so embarrassing that it was all hallucination. So it was all wild imaginations of ai which never happened, right? So this happens to all of us also. Whenever we are trying something in ai, in terms of chat gpt and other things, it starts creating some random things. A day before you ask, it would have said yes, and day after it, if you ask the same question, it will say no, right? So these things are a lot of issues there in terms of the hallucination, the bias, the in terms of the accuracy of the output. So these things makes the ai governance even more very important and inevitable. Okay. So hopefully you got a lot of insights around this, right? So my intention is not to sort of go depth of each and everything. I just wanted to give a flavor about all these things together. Most of the terms I touched upon. Okay. So I'll pause here. It's almost like 1 hour. Okay. So before I jump into the nuances of all other things, see, I will not read each and every line which is mentioned here. I'm just gonna present the slides here. Okay. The last line, which is the most favorite line of mine. While we see many jobs being replaced by AI, these AI systems can't govern themselves. Okay. So that is the reason why we are all here. Am I right? And that's the reason, if anyone pursues, right, to go for AIGP, the reason is that AI cannot have a solution to govern itself. That human loop cannot be replaced with the AI system for sure. Okay, so that is the good news for us. Whatever job can be replaced, but not the AIGP rule. Okay, so this is something which I would really say that if you are into this space, this is gonna have a very important touch point with all the organizations which by crazily adopting all these ai systems without looking at the possible risk, right? Probably in india there is no one asking question, but you are selling products and service all around the world. You are going to be questioned by the various laws. EU AI Act is already up and running. If you are doing any prohibited AI, you are going to get a penalty today. Okay, and very soon generative AI, they have given another year cutoff probably, and you are going to see those use cases. That's the most important chunk. Okay, general AI is the most highly used use cases which is common everywhere around us. And once that is live, you will see a very big ripples created in the market around us. Okay, so why should someone take AIGP? Uh, I have already highlighted enough points that how it's important. So this is something where you will be regarded as a person who blends AI with risk management and data privacy. Okay, and it's a very rare skill set. People in linkedin used to ask me, jay, why is it data privacy professionals are taking ai? what is the relationship between these two. Okay, so even I initially had this perspective, but when I when I went into the course, I slowly started able to connect the dots. I actually kept a slide there to show you this intersection between these three streams. Okay, so if you are a person who has the blend of these skill set, that's one of the most sought after skill set in next 2 3 years. Okay, so you are gonna be a standout candidate. And remember, whoever had CISSP, CISM, now there are so many people with these credentials in the market. Am I right? All of you agree with that. So many people have these credentials, but not many people have AIGP. Hardly thousands, correct? In all over the world, which means that early mover advantage is quite prominent. And in our job portals or the companies whoever is hiring, they are so fond of certificates, correct? So they immediately put that as a minimum qualifier as AIGP, because how do you validate when 1,000 people say they know AI? Because they might know prompt engineering, but they may not know what is AI governance. Correct. So to this is the one biggest difference. People ask me, will it make you the subject matter expert on day one after you get certified? I also slightly disagree, because unless you apply that knowledge on your day-to-day work, unless you keep learning and grooming yourself in that particular discipline, you will never become a subject matter expert on day one. Correct. So it's a process. So only the biggest driver for the certificate is that it gives you that initial thrust to land in an interview. Okay, that clears the path of maybe 10,000 people applying for the job, and again a AI is going to select you for the first round. And what is going to be the key selection criteria could be the certificate. Correct. So that's the reason I would say go for the certificate. I know it's slightly costly. I would not really disagree with many people who would say that, Jay, this is costly. Yes, of course, the cost of IAPP certifications are there, little higher side for all the certifications, but it has the returns. Okay, the returns you will eventually see over the next 3 4 years. You will have a lot of valuable requirements on these fields. Someone asked me, can you please repeat on the three skill set? One is your risk management, data privacy, and AI together. Okay, so your these are the three things which we will be having a close correlations. Okay, so these are the four domains that we will be discussing. What you will learn in this, so it used to be sort of 6 7 domains back then in the previous version. Okay, in the body of knowledge itself, now they have compressed this and made only 4 domains. I actually like this very much because it's crystal clear in terms of what you're gonna prepare for. The module 3 and 4 goes into specifics of AI lifecycle. Module 3 is development, module 4 is deployment. To develop and deploy, you need to know the principles, the foundation, like whatever we discussed, the laws, standards, and framework. Simple. This is what is the AI governance program. Okay, so you are going to understand the risk during development. You are going to understand how to manage the risk in deployment. To do that, you need to know the principles. You need to know the foundation of how these terms are related, how this actually as a science works. And apart from this, you need to know how to govern them, so that you know the laws, standards, and frameworks are going to help you to do that. Okay, so this is the overall crux of the entire AIGP course. Okay, very simple, more focused, and it has removed a lot of emerging laws and other things which was quite difficult when, when I prepared and all those times, because there are probably like what 10 15 countries started coming with so many guidance, so many laws, right? Before the US last presidency, there was a particular charter. The new president came and just removed it. Okay, so there was so much of rapid things that was happening, but now it's very simple. It's like they are only keeping the tried and tested laws which are already enforced, like the EUA Act. Their focus is slightly moved from US centric towards European Union and that is somewhere I feel it's a welcome move, because we were looking at lot of bits and pieces of emerging laws and other things, and it was a bit technical earlier, and they have removed all these things. So this is very easy in terms of structuring this and preparing for the exam. Okay, I'm going to cover few important numbers. One is this exam has 100 questions, out of which 85 questions are actually given a weightage, and 15 questions will not carry any weightage. These questions we call it as psychometric questions. Probably they are testing questions where they test new concepts, so you never know what are those 15 questions. Okay, so I used to tell my participants, if you find a weird question in the exam, put that question into that 15 question kitty. Okay, because sometimes there are questions which are intentionally kept like that, you might feel uncomfortable with those questions, right? So that questions are there in every exam. I have given myself CISA and many exams. I know such questions do exist, where the paraphrasing of the question or the way the question is built, you will not be happy with that. That's okay, we are not going to be happy with any exams for that matter, but the intention here is, out of this 100 question, 15 questions are probably testing you with the most difficult, most easy, most the newest trend or whatever it is, but this is the way the exam is structured. Out of 500, you need to score 300 marks to pass. Okay, actually it's not from 0 to 500, from 100 to 500. Okay, a lot of people try to do a simple arithmetic calculation saying that J, it means 60%. Absolutely wrong. It is more than 65% and it's less than 70%. No one knows the exact percentage. Why I confidently say that? Because I know the scorecard of so many people who I have trained. Unfortunately, they miss it by a whisker. I know what exactly the percentage, because IAPP gives you domain wise scoring, right? From that you will be able to understand, okay, 65% is not enough. Okay, that's why I keep saying to all my participants, target 70%. In any mock exam, wherever you practice, your mindset should be 70%. If you score 70%, no one's stopping you from getting this certification. Okay, so this is okay, this is just a high level. You can give this exam at both your exam center as well as you can give it at your home. It's up to you. And this is the numbers whichever most of you were looking at. For example, if you are taking the IAPP exam, so AGP exam through the IAPP website. Okay, listen, I'm saying from the IAPP website, for the first time you're gonna spend $800. Okay, only for the exam voucher. Okay, not the training, just the exam voucher. You're going to spend $800. And for the people who already have membership or you're given any other certification, you might get it for $650. Okay, this is not for the training. Okay, training is separately $1,195. That doesn't include the your exam voucher and stuff. Okay, so look at the pricing in the website, you can go and check yourself. Now look at what you saw in the screen and then go to the infosec train team and ask them for the pricing. You will be surprised to see a combined package which includes your membership, the training, okay, and the material from the IAPP, which we are going to discuss during the session. Okay, and everything included, you will get a very subsidized price. The reason for that is, we are official training partners, we get a subsidized price too, as a combined package of all these things together. Okay, and again the prices will vary from region to region, so you need to ask where you're gonna appear the exam from. Okay, so you need to mention that very clearly. So there are two conditions to maintain this certificate. You need to have 20 CP credits. The cyclicity of the certificate is for 2 years. The day you pass, you get the certificate validation for 24 months, and within that you have only two criterias. One, at the end of the cycle you need to show 20 CP credits and either have a certification maintenance fee paid, or you have a active membership during that period. So these are the two conditions which is there. Probably in some other time I will explain these things in detail. If you join my session, usually I do it as the first thing on the first day. All right, so okay, when we go into our IAPP content, okay, the syllabus has 4 sections. The IAPP has broke down into 7 modules. If you look at it, this is again a very good way. What they have done is, they have broken down the foundation separately, the principles and the characteristics of trustworthy AI separately, the framework and the standards separately, then development and deployment, and finally what are the laws which are applicable. This is where the laws like EU AI Act and everything will, sorry, EU AI Act is separately there, and other laws and standard which are applicable. So the four sections are broken down into 7 modules in IAPP. So it's not very difficult for you to go back, but anyways, in terms of cross mapping, it's very simple. They have broken down the first two chapters, which is principle, the foundation, standards and frameworks, into actually 4 modules. Okay, so not four, 5 modules. Okay, and remaining 2 modules which was there for your development and deployments remains the same. So totally we have 7 modules part of the IAPP course curriculum. Not curriculum, basically the content which is curated by IAPP for this training will have 7 modules. Okay,